Well, hello again. Here we are on the OhioRAAM show coming to you from Southwest Ohio, and today we're going to make a trip over to Dubai in the United Arab Republic with Scott Ragsdale and visit with him for a little bit. But I do want to say that these shows are coming to you by way of sponsorship of our two time stations here in Western Ohio, which is now Time Station 41 in Oxford, Ohio, and Time Station 42 in Lancaster, Ohio. We're there 24 hours a day during the race to help you, the fans. It's a good place to come and hear about the race, find out about the race, because there will always be people around the clock there to help you understand what's happening. And I forgot to start my timers here before we started. Okay, they're going now. To find out what's happening. And for those of you who are racing crews, what have you, we're there to help you as well with 24-hour food, 24-hour fuel, and 24-hour fans, night or day. We are there for you. And while we're on that subject, let's just get the dates up here for the race. We're getting closer all the time. And this will be the start date in Oceanside, California will be the 16th of June for the solo riders and the Race Across the West solo riders and teams. And the team start will be 4 days later on June the 20th, which means for those of you in the Midwest who'd like to come to our time stations and watch the race, they will be between June 22nd and Saturday the 27th. As we have said in the past, those early days, a Monday, sometimes early on Tuesday, and then later on Wednesday get a little thin as the early riders come through and then some of the later riders. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are really good days to come. And I want to just put a little display up here for you while we're at it and share this page. You'll find a link to this chart on the OhioRAAMshow.com website. It's the new chart for 2015 with the expected arrivals. And you notice each time station is marked. And come down here to hours, 41 and 42. You'll see the expected arrival for, let's go back up to the top. The first solo woman, the last solo woman, first and last men, the teams when they're expected to arrive. And the nice thing, we won't go into it anymore, as I said, those are just estimates, but over the years they've been pretty darn accurate. And once we get closer to the race, we're going to have a show that'll tell you a little bit about how to know a little more accurately when racers are coming through. And we have some very good tools now. We had Lon Haldeman on the show a few days ago. Those of you who heard him told about how in the early days, before cell phones, internet, or anything else, we didn't know hardly anything that was going on. Now, if we miss something, Scott, for 5 minutes, we get upset and want to know what the heck is going on out there. And so that is something we want to make you aware of. You'll find that link on our website. It's just a little tricky to find on the Race Across America website, but keep those dates in mind. We'll be talking more about that as time goes along. And while we're on the subject, I said that before, didn't I? While we're on the subject, my name is Lee Kreider. I host this show, and I believe I'm going to call this our 3rd anniversary show because it was about this date in April, which is when this show will air, that I first did the show. We did a little test show with John and Amy McFadden, who are the captains of Time Station 42 in Blanchester. It seemed to work, and then the very next show turned out to be a wow with Dex and Johnny Took, who had just published their new book and got to talk about it. And we said, hey, this is a go. Let's get it going, and we enjoy it so much. With that, I'm going to stop my talking and go over to Scott Ragsdale in Dubai. How are you doing there today, Scott?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thank you very much.
It's 10:18 here in Ohio, but I believe it's about 7 o'clock in the morning the next day over there in Dubai, is it not?
Yep, the 7:18.
7:18. Now you're 9 hours ahead of us here. Scott, before asking more questions, I just have a curiosity. Tell me about Dubai. It's a part of the United Arab Emirate. How does that work? Is it considered a separate nation or a part of a larger nation or what?
No, I guess it's like a state. There's 7 emirates, and Dubai is one of them. Abu Dhabi is the capital, so it's kind of like a state.
Okay, and so you live there and work there, but you are an American. You told me earlier that you were raised in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
A long ways from where you are now, isn't it?
Yeah, I was born in Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida. Then I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, so a Midwesterner. And then I went to boarding school and high school in Florida. From there, when I graduated from high school, I moved to University of California, Berkeley. So then I lived my 4 years in Berkeley, and then I moved outside of America in 1995. I moved to Japan. So I haven't lived in America for a long time.
And I believe you have your own business. And tell me a little about that.
Yeah, I'm the chairman of a company called Nasaba. It's a business information a deal facilitation company focused on the growth markets. So it's a French company, but our offices are in Dubai. We have an office in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Bangalore, India. We have Kuala Lumpur, Shanghai, and this is our company is a French company, but my big base is here in Dubai. So it sounds much more glamorous than it really is.
Well, I gather from following you a little bit on Facebook and other places that you do get a fair amount of traveling as a result of your business, not to mention your cycling.
Yeah, I travel a lot. I like to travel as well. So I go on personal trips as well as business trips. But I've traveled to every single country in the Middle East, including Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan. So I've been to some of those contentious places right now. So it's a different world, that's for sure.
Well, we're glad to get you on here tonight, Scott. Well, good morning over there. But
yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for your interest in all that you do promoting RAM. It's fantastic.
Well, we enjoy it.
It's quite impressive.
Yeah, we enjoy it a lot, and gives me something to do. Keeps me out of my wife's hair, and you know, when you're retired, you got to have something to keep your mind going. But I have to say that we tried to work something out a year ago, but as it turned out, you had your wife's. Was it your mother-in-law that passed away, and you had to drop out, and so.
No, what happened was I did RAM in 2013 and DNF'd midway through. So I spent 2014 training hard, and my wife's mom has had cancer for 5 years, and we expected that she would probably die during RAM. So my wife wasn't going to be able to come. So I ended up saying, okay, well, if you can't come, then I will wait another year because I want you to be part of my RAM. And ultimately, her mom died at the end of April. So I could have probably ended up going, but I had made the decision just to postpone.
Well, we're glad to get you on here, and we appreciate you busy people for taking the time with us. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about how you got into cycling, how it fits in with your view of life, and what you've been involved in the world of cycling.
Now, I'm I guess a novice when it comes to cycling. I got into cycling in probably 2010 when I started training for Ironmans, and I did a few Ironman, and then I did I did 7 Ironman in 7 days as a 40th birthday challenge, and from there I wanted to row across the Atlantic. So my coach, my previous coach, who was an ex-professional cyclist, said that I need to get more into cycling to build my core and my legs. So we spent a year training for the row, and he wanted me to do a cycling race. So he chose RAAM, and I trained for RAAM, focused entirely on cycling. But I'm still learning, I guess, about cycling. I consider myself a novice, and I know I got Marco Ballo as my coach, so he has greatly helped me improve and learning and getting stronger on the bike. So, and I train here in Dubai, and Dubai is I really like Dubai, but the areas for training are fairly limited. So I have to get in my car and drive 30 minutes. And then I cycle around the track about 100. Altogether, it's about 100 kilometers. So I cycle around a 100-kilometer loop, and that can be a bit taxing, and sometimes boring, going around the same loop. So I'm envious of the Americans that have the beautiful landscape, as well as those Austrians that have the mountains, and other Europeans.
Well, speaking of Marco, I understand you and he had a little bit of a training adventure a few weeks ago, didn't you? It seemed to me like I saw something about that.
Yeah, we like to do I like Hell Weeks. So Marco organizes every 5th week that I do a Hell Week, and we had organized starting last year, doing these 2-week, 3-week Hell camps during the Christmas vacation, which is just I have the time from work. So last year we went to Gran Canaria for a couple of weeks. That was great. And this year we looked at Oman. So we decided to ride from the UAE border across Oman, down Oman to the Yemen border, and then back up to the UAE. And that was just an incredible adventure. And it was funny, Marco was concerned it was going to be too easy, but it ultimately was much, much harder than both of us had anticipated. So it was a lot of mountains, a lot of steep climbing, and we went all the way to the Yemen border, which was just a fantastic adventure.
Well, so, we're recording this, by the way, on the 12th of February, 13th of February for Scott. And I was thinking about Marco because this is the upcoming weekend for Sebring. By the time this airs, everybody will know how that goes. Sebring, Florida, with the 24-hour race down there. I think Marco was going to...
Yeah, he's there. He's there. Yes, I was supposed to go as well, but I couldn't go because of work. So while he's doing his race in Sebring, I'm in Dubai doing a 24-hour training session. So I'll be with him in spirit.
Well, I had this fantasy of getting down there and interviewing some people. I mean, I know there's a lot of people there that I know and I'd like to talk to a little more, but that's not to be this year at least. But good luck to everybody there in Sebring. Well, the time you hear this, it's all over, but be that as it may, we appreciate what goes on down there. So Scott, you already what's some of the other races you've been involved in besides RAAM? Have you been done anything else?
Well, I swam English Channel. I did Marathon des Sables, which is a running race. I trained a lot in Slovenia, so we did the race around Slovenia course, but 4 days before the race I was supposed to do last year, I got into a taxi accident and had a bad concussion, so I couldn't do that. I've done I like endurance challenges, so most of the races I do are endurance-related multi-day races, like the 7 Ironman in 7 days, and I've done several Ironman. But as far as cycling goes, it's RAAM is my big focus.
So you did RAAM in 2013. You DNF'd. How far did you get, Scott?
1,790 miles. I guess I was a few miles from the Missouri border, and I I never ever once thought during the race about quitting. Never. I had sleep deprivation and saddle sores, but I got where I woke up and I couldn't sit on the bike, and I was sleep deprived, and I just said I didn't want to do this anymore, and I regret terribly. So anybody that's watching this that is a rookie to RAM, that is doing it, make sure your crew doesn't let you quit. So I had one of my problems was I had a crew. Everybody was a rookie, so none of us understood the race. Even my previous coach had really no clue of what RAM was. So we didn't understand the sleep deprivation and how important it is. Many times you want to stop or you want to rest or whatever, and the crew needs to keep pushing the rider. So if you're a rookie to this and you're watching, make sure that your crew does not let you stop, no matter what. So I quit, and here I am, almost 2 years later. I regret terribly. But one good thing, though, had I not quit, I wouldn't have, if I would have finished, I probably would have moved on to something else, and I wouldn't have kept getting further into ultra cycling and getting Marco Ballo as my coach and traveling to the Canaries and going to across to Oman and all the other stuff that we've done in training. So it actually worked out nicely because I've gotten to learn and enjoy ultra cycling on a completely different level than I did before.
Well, as I've said to other people, when you have DNF, you have a lot of good company in that category. But let me ask you, from 2013 and your other cycling, what did you learn? What do you think you're going to do different? What did your crew learn? What you see happening in 2014 that may be different than, 2015 than was in 2013?
Well, 2013, because I went into the race about 8 kilos, maybe even 10 kilos too heavy. I'm a big guy. I'm 195 centimeters. I'm 6 foot, almost 6'5". And I went into the race heavy because I knew I would lose weight over the 12 days. When I did this ultra Ironman, multi-Ironman, consecutive Ironman challenge where I lost about 15 kilo. So I lost lots of weight on that. So I went in a little bit heavier thinking I'm going to lose the weight on this race. So I went in, I didn't realize the climbing in the beginning. So I got absolutely slapped by God for being naive. Then I didn't do enough climbing training. Because of my work schedule, 99% of my training was done in the flat desert of the UAE, and although it's beautiful, it didn't prepare me whatsoever for the climbing. And my previous coach, I should say, he gambled that mentally I would be able to battle and just be strong enough but it comes down to I was not prepared for the climbing. So this time I'm doing a lot more climbing. A lot of my training is focused on climbing. Marco is training me to become a much faster cyclist, whereas before I did many 20-hour. For the first RAM I did many 20+ hour rides, but they were, as Marco calls them, recovery rides. But for me, it was just getting on a bike and riding 20 hours and getting my mind mentally able to do that. But this year, Marco has me really focused on speed, strength, and lots of climbing. And that was one of the reasons why we went to the Yemen mountains, was for the steep climbs. So I ideally, and I'm going to go into the race much thinner, leaner. So I'm not going to be carrying all that extra weight in those climbs, especially the first 4 days. The first 4 days for all that climbing is going to be much more enjoyable now as well, because I'm going to be much more prepared for it.
Does living in Dubai and doing a lot of riding there, does that give you an advantage in the desert that maybe others might not have?
It's funny. I thought that. I went into the first RAM thinking, the desert's going to be a piece of cake, because that's where I train. But often I train from like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. So when I finished training, it's just starting to get hot. But I remember that first day in the Mojave Desert, and I really felt like the sun was about that far from my head. And it really was, I couldn't believe how much, I was thinking it's hotter than it is in Dubai. So I have to admit that the desert, the Mojave seemed much, much hotter than it is here in Dubai.
You know, I've had a thought, Scott, and I thought I'd like to bring it up with the Bothlings sometime. With global warming, I'm thinking about the impact this will have on the race across America, not so much because of the increased heat in the desert, but we've had a couple of years when the problem with fires has been really serious. And was it 2 years ago that some of the racers just barely got through before roads were closed with major fires, and I think that's something that I've been thinking about. I don't know if anybody else has or not.
Well, I've luckily got through it before the roads closed and there was fire in 2013. But that's the year that all those firefighters died in Yarnell. Where I train here in Dubai, there's no fire whatsoever because it's only sand. But there's something about the desert over there in the Mojave Desert in that area. It is very, very hot. So hopefully there's not going to be any fires this year that add on to the challenge of RAM.
So your whole life isn't wrapped up with the race across America. What other kinds of things are you thinking about for your future?
Well, my life is basically all I do right now is cycle. Go to work, go home and sleep, wake up and cycle. So right now my life is cycling, but I want to row across the Atlantic in 2016. So all of this is some form of preparation for my biggest goal, which is to solo row the Atlantic. So that's what all of this is about. On a personal level, my wife is French and my girls are French, and we have a home in France, and we live here and we travel back and forth. So I enjoyed traveling and enjoyed trying to experience life to the fullest.
If you rode the Atlantic, from where to where?
From the Grand Canary to Barbados. It's I'm budging 60 to 90 days. So it's there's a race. There's a rowing race they have every year. So I will probably do that because it will be somewhat safer for my wife. It won't be as nervous because it's a bit more. There's a bit more structure to it. But it's one of those iconic. It's like RAAM. RAAM is the ultimate iconic endurance challenge, and that's I guess one of my motivations is for these endurance challenges, just to see if I can do it. Unfortunately, I couldn't do RAAM the first time. I failed.
Well, you know, I've often thought in another lifetime I'd like to be a sailor.
I would like to sail it.
I've done a little bit of it. I've never had a boat myself, but I've helped crew for some other people on occasion, and I enjoyed that a great deal. And I thought a sailing trip like that might be interesting. Rowing, I don't know. I can see so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah, I guess that's the intrigue of it. No, but one of my big goal is to sail around the world. So in fact, just last night over dinner, I was talking to Sophie, my wife, about when we're going to do that one day. So now I love sailing. I love sailing.
Well, what little I've done, I certainly do. It just, you know, I see people running around. We've got a lot of nice sailing up here on the Great Lakes, and I see people running around their power boats, and I said, what kind of fun is that? You know, versus, but the greatest learning I had in sailing, Scott, was I had these images, you know, of women in their bikinis sitting, dangling their legs over the side. I found out that it's work, and there's always the skipper never was satisfied with something on the ship, had to be adjusted. So, oh, I'll tell you what, Scott, I just had a friend of mine pop in, Brett Campbell down in Tennessee. Hi, Brett, how are you? We're just about ready to
Hey, Brett.
Wind this thing up.
Good evening.
Brett here, he doesn't know tiddlywat about ultra cycling, but he's one heck of a musician, and we hadn't chatted for a while, and I said, hey, if you're around this evening, pop in. This is Scott Ragsdale. He's over in the desert in Dubai, where we're just talking about his training and getting ready for the race across America in 2015.
That sounds fun, actually. And no, I don't know a whole lot about ultra cycling, but I was heavy into BMX back in the early 80s, in the age when we swapped over from the old eyeball-shaped bicycle frames to dual triangles, and was amongst the first to be attempting the backflip and going, this is stupid. That's about when I got out of it.
Didn't you say you never did a backflip? You didn't do a backflip, no?
I never landed one. I did a couple by accident that flipped a couple motorcycles.
That's sort of like me in skiing, you know. I never did a jump intentionally. I always thought the skis ought to stay on the snow, but once in a while something happened that I didn't really intend. Hey, thanks for popping in. Hang around here because we're about ready to wind down the show. Thanks for being with us, Scott. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and it was we had to work some things out, and we got them worked out, and we wish you well on this weekend as you're kind of paralleling the 24-hour race down in Sebring, and we will hope to see you here in Ohio. I don't promise anybody, I don't promise people anymore that I will see them because I can't. I used to spend 36 hours a day at the time stations, but I can't do that anymore, and I try to get down there to see as many people as I can. But with that said, we'll make a special effort here. We try to make a special effort for anybody we have on the show. So with that, we're going to. Is there anything final you'd like to say, Scott, before we close the show down?
No. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your interest and everything that you're doing to promote RAM. But for any of the viewers that are going to be rookies to RAM and it's their first experience, no matter what, make sure you don't quit, and make sure your crew keeps you on the bike. I read all the books before I did the race, and I never thought for a second that I would DNF. After sleep deprivation, riding your bike and saddle sores, suddenly quitting becomes very easy. So you need to make sure your crew doesn't let you quit. So that's my big comment on this is any of the soloists or rookies that are going to be doing this. Whatever happens, don't quit, because I DNF'd. It was the first DNF of my life, and I've had to now. I'm reflecting on it, and I think about it probably every day. So don't stop, just keep going.
Well, thank you for that, Scott, and we want to thank everybody for stopping in this evening, or whenever they see this. This is show number 82, and it will be released on the 27th of April, which is getting mighty close to race time. And I would say, those of you who are watching, I plan to be at Calvin's Challenge and doing a remote show there. So those of you who are going to be at Calvin's Challenge, I definitely plan to be there for registration on Friday evening. If you're there and you see me, tap me on the shoulder. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to get you on the show. It's relatively painless, I think. And I may even be able to be around for the race some. That kind of depends on some other things. But so if you're around next week, over in Springfield, Ohio at Calvin's Challenge, the 12-hour race there. It's quite popular here in the Midwest. I'd be happy to see you there. Thank you for your support. Thank all of you for supporting the show when you see it on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter. Anything you can do to share, support the show helps. The show gets seen more when you give it your support, and that helps spread the word about ultracycling, which is a great sport, but not very well known. So thank all of you again for being with us. And with that, we'll say goodbye to all of you.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you.